Welcome to the Remote Work Life podcast, where real-world remote work CEOs and leaders talk about how they collaborate, thrive, and build their businesses. Join me and thousands of followers from around the world to learn skills you need to work online from anywhere. I'm your host, Alex Wilson-Campbell. I'm an interview coach and tech recruiter on a mission to help you gain clarity and direction in your career and uncover hidden jobs through one-to-one and group coaching. And I've got a spectacular guest. Well, that's all I can really say. A spectacular guest, a great guest with me today, Tasia Duske. She is the CEO of Museum Hack. And you'll see soon why I asked Tasia to be on here. And there's two reasons, actually. Museum Hack are quite an unusual company. They're not your regular company. They lead renegade museum tours and team building activities at some of the best museums in New York, in San Francisco, Chicago, LA, Washington, DC. Very unusual business in that sense, and a very unique business. And Tasia is not your regular CEO either. So I just had to have Tasia on here today with me to tell you more about Museum Hack and to get to know about Tasia as well. Tasia is also an expert in psychology and basically presentation. So I just had to have her on here. Tasia, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. So excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, first, Tasia, like I said, I need the audience to get to know more about you and Museum Hack. So could you tell us how you got involved with Museum Hack and a little bit more about Museum Hack as well, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you nailed our description pretty nicely in my intro.
Excellent.
So Museum Hack, we believe that museums are fucking awesome. And we're on a mission to reimagine the museum experience for people who think they don't like museums. So we've been around for about 5 years. We started as a very small, scrappy startup with our one founder, Nick Gray. Mm-hmm. And he just loved museums and wanted to share that world with other people like his friends and different millennials that weren't finding the love themselves. So he started throwing renegade museum tours. And then, of course, he had one hipster blogger that ended up on one of his tours, wrote an article about it, the power of exposure, and it blew up from there. So now we've grown over 5 years. We bring in about 21,000 guests every year to the museum with us. And we just made it to an Inc. 5000 company. So one of the fastest growing companies in the US.
It's amazing. And it's such a rapid growth over 5 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've been with the company about 2.5 years, coming up on 3. I'm very excited. And I must admit, I am our ideal client of someone that lived in New York City for a number of years and never went to the Met. I never visited it until I got a phone call one day from a friend that said, "Hey, I don't know if you're looking for another job, but there's this company, Museum Hack, and I think you should be part of them." So I went on a tour. I visited the Met for the first time, realized it was something special, something powerful, and knew I had to be a part of it.
And you've had a pretty rapid rise yourself within the company, because was it only last year that you were chief of staff and now you're CEO? Is that right?
Absolutely. In 2.5 years, made it from staff manager to chief of staff to CEO. So I chuckle with myself when I first joined the company as staff manager because the company was so small and I'd worked so long in corporate world. I knew what they needed in a position, which was chief of staff, starting to build up the budgets, the structures, everything that you need for a sustainable company. And at our small stages, they didn't necessarily know that or have that yet. Mm-hmm. So I joined at a very small role, knowing that I could start building my own job description and doing what I wanted and created my own career path.
And was that the push for you that moved you from the corporate world to Museum Hack, or was there more to it?
Yeah, okay. So I really wanted the flexibility and the ability myself to build something. So I was working for Marriott, and Marriott is an amazing powerhouse of a company. They've already developed all of their structures and all their systems. So it was pretty much me maintaining them. And I found myself after a couple of years with Marriott wanting to build and create something of my own, which is what really enticed me to jump over to a startup and have so much control. If I wanted to change a policy or a procedure or try something wild new, I could just make that happen. And I had a team that was equally as excited. And plus it was remote. So I got to jump out of the office and now I got to travel and go hang out with my family whenever I want.
No, that's cool. And is it 100% remote then?
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. We've had this organic growth over the past 5 years. So we started being local in New York City, and all of our tours are live. So they do happen in museums. And we found as we started to grow and have more tour guides, we needed some additional admin support. So we originally started with hiring some virtual assistants to just keep up with, say, the billing, the invoicing, and scheduling all of our tours. And then from there, we're like, hey, this is pretty sweet having a virtual workplace. And we've just organically grown. So we have now some of our virtual assistants that started out. One is now currently our marketing manager. So we've really been able to like dial up the skill sets of our people working as VAs and get them into larger roles. And plus, a lot of our tour guides, they do a lot of their prep work, building their content all at home. So it gives them the flexibility. So while everything is actually live in person at a museum, all the headquarters, all the back end stuff is done from wherever we want, in our living room, on our couch, wherever.
And as somebody, because I know there's kind of two sides to your business, as far as I've gathered. There may be a bit more. There's like the I suppose the tourist side, where you're telling stories to tourists to get them to really engage with the museum. And there's the team building side of things. Could you tell us about both of those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started out just basically, our target audience was those millennials that either lived in the area or were coming to visit. And then we had one guy come on a tour with his friends. And then he's like, hey, I think this would be awesome to bring my company to. Can I bring my company to this?
Oh, wow.
And we're like, interesting business idea. So it's now a huge, huge sector of our business. The majority of our revenue does come in from corporate team building events. And hey, people want to go either to happy hour, to bowling, or they can come on an intentional team building activity in a classy museum with us and kind of turn it around for the renegade style.
Sounds nice. And so if you're a tour guide, then you do all your prep wherever you may be, near to New York or San Francisco, wherever it may be, and then you're on site at the museum. And what kind of... So you're obviously showing people around the museum, not in a sort of regular tour guide style. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, exactly. So our tour guides, it takes about 3 months to train up to be a tour guide. So it's an audition process. So they all have to write their own material. We really push this because we want it to be passion-based storytelling. So what I find most interesting and most exciting, that is going to have an energy and contagious, energy with it, compared to if I was now making you tell the stories that I was excited about. Mm-hmm. So we really make all of our tour guides, whoever they are, to write the content and find the interesting things that they love, and then they get to share that with the guests. So they write about 2 hours worth of content. We also have a number of games that we play within our tours, as well as icebreakers, and we have some photo challenges. So you have about 75% content, about 25% games and activities with your team. And you meet together. We aim to keep our groups very small. So typical museum, you'd imagine going on a docent tour, maybe you have 20 people, maybe you have 30. They're all kind of staggered, and it's the docent delivering that wonderful, very educational information at you. And we take an entertainment first approach to that education. So very small tour groups. We want to have it you're going on an adventure with your friends. No one's standing in front of each other. You can all look each other in the eye. And we like to ask a lot of questions and push that social vibe.
Sounds good. Sounds good as well.
Yeah, did I paint a good picture for you?
No, that's great. And I think that, to me, it sounds like it's a pretty rigorous process to get those people in, so if there's people listening in New York or wherever it may be, Washington, D.C., it's really important for you to listen up. If you're ever looking to apply for a job, should it become available at Museum Hat, because it sounds like it's going to be quite a rigorous process, would you say, to sort of hire your new members of staff?
Yeah, so we take a lot of pride in our team, and it's like joining our family. So any audition process, whether it be for a tour guide or for our remote positions, are usually pretty long. We like to have a first intro conversation to just let the person know what they're getting into for our interview audition process. Because it's like bringing someone into your family, and you want to make sure it's a good fit for us and also a good fit for them.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's not funny, but you're reflecting what a lot of other CEOs, hiring managers have said. It's not just about the fact that it's a remote job or a job with Museum Hack. You have to live and breathe essentially what the company does, right? Is that your ethic as well?
Yeah, and I very much believe also with a remote culture, some of the lines do get blurred between work and life. So instead of trying to figure out how to separate and balance them, how do you integrate them in a way that is successful and works out for both of you? So there are a lot of those boundaries that are blurred, and we want to make sure our team that are with us, they feel fully supported in every area, and we do have that family atmosphere.
No, that's great. And I think you say something about a premium mentality, fierce conversations.
Yes.
Yeah. How
Very
is
much
that?
believe in it.
Yeah. How is that in real life? I mean, could you give me an example?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking, one of my main philosophies I still in life. I love Susan Scott. She's one of my favorite leadership consultants. And one of her quotes is, well, no single conversation
Yes.
is guaranteed to change the trajectory of a relationship, a career, a company, or a life. Any single conversation can. So I very much believe that. I love that quote. And I really want to push all of our team members to be having conversations that are impactful, that are pushing for results, and are going to get us what we want and where we want to be. So try to make every conversation as real as possible and get right to the issue and move us all forward.
No, I agree. And I think I get the feeling as well, as part of this process of getting people on board, you're going to expect that kind of two-way sort of interaction and conversation
Yes.
as well.
Very much so.
Yeah. What kind of advice could you give somebody to prepare themselves for an interview with Museum Hack or in general? Because I think what you do actually can be applied to I think it can be applied to other companies as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I'm interviewing right now. So it's like really hot in my mind of like the big tips for
Excellent, good.
So yeah, one of the biggest things, we try to write our job descriptions as like fun and playful as our culture is. So have you ever read a job description and you go through like 3/4 of a page and you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about. It's just
absolutely.
full of all these buzzwords and all this fluff.
Yes.
So we try to eliminate it down, give some real life examples, and also put like a playfulness into it so people know from the instant when they're reading a job description at Museum Hack, that's like the culture they're going into. And we put at the very bottom, like, hey, basic cover letters will not be looked at. So like add fun into it. So I love getting the excitement of someone really pouring out their heart in a cover letter and letting us know that they are actually interested in a job with us compared to just looking for a job, because we really want people that are going to fight for the mission like us, be part of that team mentality.
Absolutely. Can you give me an example of someone that stood out for you that you've either hired recently or in the past?
Yeah. Okay. So there's one that put at the bottom of his cover letter where he's like, "An extra points for reading to the bottom of my cover letter. My favorite holiday coming up is National Talk Like a Pirate Day." So I love this. I thought it was hilarious. So then when I sent out emails for the next round of auditions and inviting them, at the very bottom, I put for all the members that were coming back, I was like, FYI, thanks to a fellow candidate, National Talk Like a Pirate Day is coming up. So I got a kick out of it. I was entertained and he joined our team. I'm very, very grateful.
No, I tell you what, I've hired myself in the past and it can get quite mundane. You must get quite a number of applications, right?
Yeah. Okay. So here's my other trick for weeding out people instantly. You want to hear the secret?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, two things. We have two. One, we just ask people to do a typing test. Okay. So that's the first part of it. And then the second thing, we put a bonus question and we say, go to the application online of Imager, and you have to use that software online to take a screenshot of your typing test results. It turns it into a URL and then upload your URL here. Wow. Pretty tricky. Okay. You have to learn like how to use a new platform online. And you also have to have the motivation to do a bonus question. You know how many people write in their cover letters being like, I always go above and beyond. I do everything extra. And then they pass on the bonus question. Oh my gosh. It drives me wild. So that's my instant like out. I will never hire anyone that chooses not to do that bonus question. Because if you're not going to fight like hell for it in the instant like initial interview process, like you're probably not going to fight like hell on my team. And I want people that are going to give it their all.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to say you're going to go above and beyond, at least prove that you're going to go above and beyond, you know? Yeah, I hear that.
Very true.
But it's great that, I mean, I think a lot of applicants get quite bored with the application process as well. So I think it's great that you've got you put things in there that are not just there to sort of test them. They're different. They're amusing. I think that takes the mundane stuff from the job application. So I think it's great. It's great. Exactly. And like you said, it kind of doubles up on their technical ability as well, which is even better. I like that.
Very much so.
So are there any other parts of your recruitment process that, I don't know, that you want to tell us about, or that are quite important to you, I suppose?
Yeah, I've fine-tuned. I'm really proud of where we've come in our recruitment and also our onboarding. So we start out with just reviewing, okay, cover letter, and then answering questions in the application. So I can see typing tests, I can see bonus questions, and then from there we email out a questionnaire. So as you know, like your time is very important. So I want to eliminate people as quickly as possible. So I don't spend hours in an actual interview with them asking questions when I could have found out something early on that would have made them not an ideal candidate. So we always send out for every position some sort of test that's related to the job itself. So for example, I'm hiring for a current operations manager. So I sent out a couple sample questions that said, here's our policy. Imagine this situation came up that was breaking our policy. How would you respond? So they talk me through their thought process about how they go about making a decision, and then also what the ideal outcome would be. We send them out a questionnaire to have them communicate and write back their written responses. Not only helps me identify their decision-making process, but also how clearly they can communicate in a written form. So using Slack, using email, it's really important to be able to express yourself in a way that others are responding to and communicate clearly. So this allows me to see all those skill sets pretty quickly, pretty easily, and evaluate the candidate.
Yeah, it's very thorough. And again, something that a lot of other remote companies, not just remote companies, but I think especially remote companies, that whole idea of written communication, via Slack and email, it seems to be top of the list communication in general, but especially written communication,
Exactly.
And you, I mean, at Museum Hack, you guys are experts in obviously communication. You're an expert in psychology and all that sort of thing. Now, when they've got past this rigorous pre-screening process that you have, which I think is really good, and they're standing in front of you now at interview, you say you kind of, I suppose, tick some of the boxes already by doing that pre-screening process. What do you look at next in terms of the interview candidate in front of you?
Yeah, so we're trying one new thing with this operations manager, which I'm borrowing from a potential role that I heard about at Marriott. So you have 15 minutes and you have to teach your audience something. It could be anything.
Wow.
So I heard about this for a job interview where you had to be a trainer. So you need to be able to communicate clearly and also train other people on a topic. So things that I've heard, you could potentially teach people how to talk like a pirate. That was my joke, as you can tell. I'm like really into pirates. So talk like a pirate, teach someone how to fold a fitted sheet. So whatever it may be, to have a couple minutes where you teach something that you're passionate about in any way. So again, it shows that clear communication, and how also do you train and teach someone, which would be very important in the roles that I'm hiring right now.
Mm-hmm. Again,
yeah, so that's one thing.
I love it. And that's not just about the communication as well. It's about the creativity as well.
Yes, right? Very much so.
Because with it, I'm assuming, it's probably a good assumption, but when you're doing tours, when you're trying to inspire your guests, there's a certain amount of storytelling in there that you have to build in, right, to keep them engaged.
Definitely.
How do you then, what do you look for then at the interview? And another thing, the second part is, how do you tell stories to keep people really sort of like engaged and not get bored?
Yeah. Okay. Two separate ones there.
Yes.
So starting with the interview questions. Okay. So what looking for? One, either clear communication and also confidence in sharing and presenting to a group. We do have a lot of roles, such as our operations manager, that is going to be responsible for teaching and training in a remote area. So you're going to have to be able to teach people in a Zoom room. So set them up for that skill and just see their comfort level expressing whatever it is to a group. Second thing, it lets me know how they handle things under pressure. So if one person is not getting it or not understanding it, or say internet does cut out, I can see how they respond in times of crisis. So that helps me out in that situation. And I also believe very much that past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. So I love to use STAR interview questions after this. So looking at the situation of the test that happened, the action that the person took on it, and the actual results of that. And I think a lot of candidates miss that result when they're talking about their past experience. So how do you drive home? Here's exactly what I did, and here's is, hey, don't confuse efforts with results. We have to make sure that the results are there. And on a team where results really matter, I got to make sure that I'm seeing that past behavior before I'm going to make a chance with it and risk bringing on a team for future behavior.
Got you. That's great. And so the story side of things.
All right.
One thing I always got. I mean, I used to interview lots, and in fact, still interview quite a lot of people for jobs, for example, and it can be quite monotonous sometimes, can't it? Because you're seeing lots of people. You're probably hearing the same things often.
Yep. You have to explain why you're interested.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what do you look for? How would you sort of suggest somebody makes their story or their answers interesting?
Yeah, so a couple things. I'll give you some advice for interviewing and then some advice we use on Museum Hack just for our engaging stories. So one, be passionate about it, be excited and have that sense of play. So that's one of our core values of passionate, playful, and curious. Put that in there. These interviews don't have to be so high rung and so stressful, depending on which culture you're at. So our culture, Museum Hack, I want someone to be there, be silly, have fun, because that's going to fit in with our vibe. So show your personality, have a good time with it. So the other thing that we use a lot on tours, in addition to like the passion-based, are also engagement techniques. So we call them like check-ins and call-outs. And when can you ask a question? So an example that I used very small in this interview earlier, like, have you ever read a job description that's very long and you go through half of it and you don't know what's going on, right? So that probably resonated with you. You're like, we've all been there. So bring up something as an example that the other people have lived through, and then ask them how they feel about it.
Sounds good. And you mentioned one of those things that you look for, obviously being the kind of company that expects people to present in front of quite a, not massive crowd, but it's a decent sized crowd. What indicators do you look for in terms of the confidence side of things? Because I know lots of people struggle with confidence at interviews. What do you look for?
Yeah. Okay. So eye contact being a main one. How you present yourself with, if you're nervous or say unsure about your answers, okay, maybe you're like crouching in, you're like covering yourself compared to being open. And the very basic as behavioral and body language responses, right? Hands on your hips, you're feeling like confrontational compared to crossed off. So just looking for someone to have a freedom and a flexibility with it and really push back as long as they're having fun. If they're having fun and they're excited about it, and okay, not only fun, we got to also have like the content underneath to make sure that the results are going to be there, but mainly look for just openness and people enjoying what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. And you said as well, sorry, no, you didn't say this. I said this in one of my questions. You're hiring at the moment, but I mean, different companies experience different sort of peak periods and periods where they're quiet in terms of hiring. Are there any particular peak periods for Museum Hack with their hiring at all?
Yeah, so it depends on which department. So for our tour guides, we do have seasons where we hire quite regularly. So our busy seasons are usually going into, say, like October, November, December, January, February. It tends to be very busy with tourists coming in, and also companies wanting to have their end of year holiday parties. So huge group for us. So we usually do hiring for tour guides in the summers where it's a little bit slower, and then we can have them all trained up, ready to go when we hit that like high time in quarter four.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and then the rest of our positions just depends on demand. So as we've been growing and we've gotten a lot more corporate leads, then we've had to expand our sales team because of that. We've also had to expand our marketing team as we've adjusted our content strategy. So that's been more of like whenever we felt the need for it, or if we had a new position we wanted to experiment with, we'd open up those not specific to seasons.
Sounds good to me. It sounds good. And like I said before, it's a rigorous hiring process, great hiring process, different, it brings out all the great aspects of looking for a job. I mean, people just think looking for a job is a drag. In most cases it is, but this sounds pretty good to me. It sounds great. And it sounds as well as though you've got, I think another thing that a pattern is that you're trying to make people feel part of, you're obviously trying to find people who can sort of get in with the actual culture of Museum Hack, but you deliberately try and go overboard to make people feel welcome and part of the team and part of the culture by the sounds of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. We have icebreakers at almost all of our meetings, and we have little games that we play during all of them. So very important is the culture. Sounds
good. And just tell me a bit more. I mean, you mentioned briefly about the onboarding side of things. What does that look like?
Yeah, so we rely heavily on Trello. Okay, so if you use Trello before?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
I love Trello.
I love
It
Trello.
reminds me of like a Pinterest board, but for to-do lists. Like
Yes.
I absolutely love it. Yeah. So we put together all of our Trello boards for different departments, and then it allows the manager to easily assign with due dates for the different cards that need to be done, and then also link in, like we have a Google form that could be used as a quiz to test knowledge at certain points. So a manager can be able to go in and check off what is happening on the onboarding training process, usually within the first week. And we also put up a number of cards that are like, okay, your Q&As are here. If you have any questions, type it here, and then your manager can go on and check if they have any. And then also giving them little challenges, like find out this person in accounting and go introduce yourself and have an icebreaker with them. So we use Trello a lot, and we assign them fun tasks as well as the training material.
Sounds good. And once they've got their feet firmly, once they're sort of feeling like part of the furniture, I suppose, and
hands right on the keyboard, bolted in. Yep.
Hands on the keyboard. Do you have any sort of like protocols or set structures for like communication between teams, or is it fairly sporadic?
Yeah, so we have I'd say it starts with, we have weekly manager meetings. We call them the League of Extraordinary Managers. So it starts with weekly meetings there. We tend to post our notes either on Slack. We have a Facebook group that we post up there as well. And then we email out occasionally whenever we do have an important company announcement. So we try to hit like all three levels of like Slack, email, Facebook to share anything. And then from there, we have department meetings. So our sales team meets weekly. We try to keep those as short as possible. People's attention spans can start going when it goes to a remote meeting. They're like,
Absolutely.
cat comes up, or they need to get more coffee. Who knows? So we usually keep those to like half an hour. And we also check in regularly. If one week you don't need anything, don't have a meeting. Like cancel it and feel okay with that. And then from there, also trying to post up any important notes from it. And then we also have our city lead meetings. So we have a city head in each city that's on the ground. And then so I meet with them about once a month, 2 times a month, and also try to share out all of our notes. So everyone knows what is happening, how we can communicate, and then also ask for feedback on them. So we try to plug in for all of our notes, like, hey, if you have a thought about this, email this. Or I'll plug in some jokes there, which I have like maybe 2 or 3 people that read all the way to the bottom and get my jokes and respond back to get like gift cards or candy or whatever it is. But try to add in little engaging stuff. So they want to read the company updates that are passed around, because we only have a lot of times our written communication form. So if not send out a video, people just have to read.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good. And it sounds like you've answered kind of my next question in terms of the, keeping the team sort of engaged in what's going on in the business. Those regular meetings, both the remote meetings as well as the sort of in-person meetings as well. That sounds great.
Yeah.
I suppose what's the biggest challenge then for you as a team, as a remote team?
Yeah, so I don't want to be cliche and just say going with the communication. Communication is so strong. So it can be so frequent of you're starting to ask a lot of questions and you kind of like get in the weeds with a Slack channels just going on. And it can spend like 10 minutes trying to figure out something on Slack compared to just jumping on a phone call, and you're able to solve it instantly. So I think that's one thing we try to push for that as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Anytime you start feeling like the communication is not going where you need, just jump on a call with the person and figure out what's happening. And then also the other side of things, you really have to have a lot of trust with your remote teams because they're not with you there in the office. So really push the trust and verify method of making sure you have people in place that you really feel completely confident that they're going to be able to work at home. They're going to be able to like respect that power that comes with it and be responsible. And then also verify to make sure that people are following up with what they need to, share results as much as possible in Slack. Again, that communication. So one more quote from Susan Scott, I freaking love it, saying that all communication or all conversations are with yourself, and sometimes they involve other people. So I love that.
I like that one. I like it.
Yeah. And thinking about remote world, there's so much that I'm just like sitting here and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, that'd be an awesome idea. Okay, I need to make sure I like ask my team what they think about that. And then, hey, maybe I do get a phone call or get another Slack message and I like forget about it, but I keep moving ahead with the direction that I now see because the idea that I had in my head. So it's not as easy to turn to the person next to you and say, hey, I was just thinking about this. What do you think? Can we all like rally and discuss it? You have to be very intentional about making sure to get those thoughts out of your head onto the keyboard and into other people's.
No, I love that. I love it because one of the sort of pain pain points of the people in my community is that they may have a remote role, but they don't necessarily have that team to call on to actually share those ideas, share those thoughts. And then there are one or two who perhaps feel as though they're restricted in their thoughts and their ability to sort of express them. What I wanted to ask you is, or how do you overcome those feelings sometimes when you feel a bit lonely, maybe? You're working at home. How do you personally overcome that, and how do you encourage others within your team to encourage that?
Yeah, that's a great one. And we do have a lot of people regularly bring up and say like a quarterly review. We're like, what are you struggling with? What can we help you with? And they're like, I'm feeling a little lonely. So one thing that we've implemented is we call it our Mr. Rogers channel. So it's a channel set up in Slack, and we use the donut integration. Okay. So it pairs you up with other people that are in that channel, and it sends you a message. You can set it at whatever setting, whether it be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you get sent a private message with those people, and then you have to plan a time to have coffee and donuts. So it's a little joke and play on words. So we try to have those regularly where we can get our team members together, just talking about stuff that's not related to work at all. Mm-hmm. We also have a lot of fun Slack channels. So we have the Dogs of Museum Hack Slack channel. We have a fitness one. We also do a lot of regular healthy lifestyle challenges. So we've had 2 so far this year that have been either stretching challenges or water drinking challenges. And something that everyone, both need it. That's something that everyone's doing together. They're competing with it together. And then we can joke with one another about are you keeping up on this? So it gives us something outside of work to specifically be talking about if we're not actively involved in those other channels.
Sounds good. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I think, for me, there's probably people underestimate the challenges involved with remote work, and perhaps think it's just an easy sort of alternative. But I think you have to work much harder. Do you not think, Tasia, if you're working remotely?
I'm so on this. Okay, so I think I very much believe remote cultures, you get pushed so much more for results than just being a warm body there. It's more important what you're doing compared to just being present. So an office job, all right, you could go in there for 8 hours. You could sit back, you could chill, you could drink your coffee, you can take whatever breaks. And it's okay, I'm stereotyping some office jobs, but some of it, you could just hang out and it wouldn't matter. In a remote world, if you're just hanging out and you're on the clock, that feels a lot different than just BSing when you're sitting around talking with your coworkers. It's you're not working. So I think it helps us set up those clear boundaries of when you're on, you are super productive, get your stuff done, and then get off. So you can also enjoy life, because that's part of the joy of being remote is you can enjoy life, and you can be anywhere you want in the world, and you can take breaks anytime. You can walk outside or do whatever. Yeah,
it's a special kind of person and a special kind of mentality, I think. Because of some of the things that you just said there about the productivity and about knowing when to sort of stop and start. I mean, I was speaking to a wellness professional who said, because one of my issues is that once I start work, I get so zoomed in, so focused on what I'm doing, and I just stay in my chair for hours without taking a break, and it's getting dark outside and everything like that.
You gotta move.
Yeah, exactly. And it gave me problems. I was getting stiff in my, So one of the things he said to me is put a red dot on the corner of your laptop to remind yourself to actually get up and go for a walk. What hacks do you have to sort of what are your productivity hacks, or the hacks that you use to actually make sure that you're on track with things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I like, anything that could be a good reminder to get up, stand up, or hey, just check in with your posture, because that can also start to fall when you're working so hard on something. So I love doing Pomodoro sessions. So if you plan for 20 minutes that you're working on something very specifically, very isolated, and then take a break and go on to something else. So trying to limit the multitasking. I also am very pro trying to get off Slack as much as possible of using your snooze and setting away settings if you are working on specific things or you have a meeting. So one, people don't expect you to respond then. And also you don't have the guilt that you're supposed to be responding then. And also I'd say with it, creating a to-do list of what results you actually want to accomplish specifically that day. So I usually pick out 3 to 4 things that I want to get done by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it helps direct my activities. And then once I've completed those, great. Go have lunch, go walk around, do whatever you want. I like to do yoga every day. So go and like take a yoga class in the afternoon, whatever, and then come back to it. So whatever you can do to stay healthy, stay fit, and emotionally and mentally strong while working at home.
Absolutely. I mean, and one of the things is, I know you like Sean Aker, right?
I love him. Yes. Happiness advantage.
Yeah. I love Sean Aker as well, and I love the whole idea of happiness at work. I know you've talked about lots of things like the playful nature of Museum Hack, the community that you've built, and the actual the idea of having fun and all that sort of thing. What advice can you give in general, to somebody seeking that sort of I don't know, that happiness, that enjoyment in work and life?
Yeah, a very tough question. So
Yes.
One, read Sean Aker's book, Happiness Advantage, because I love that one.
Yeah, it's great.
So yeah, I think he's brilliant at thinking, okay, if you adjust your mindset, then the results and the happiness, you'll get where you want to go if you decide happiness first. So starting with the playful nature, then, hey, people respond to you better, your team's more excited, the results are higher. So the whole beliefs of being in a team building industry and like being a company that provides those team building, very much believe in it internally as a company. When your people are happy, they're feeling taken care of, they're going to take care of your clients and your guests, and then business will take care of itself. So you really need to push that. And it doesn't have to be as serious. I think a lot of bosses feel like their role and their responsibility is to like make sure people are getting results done and like get them in trouble if they're messing up. And I really want to push people to redefine what it means to be a boss and think of it more of like a coach. If you were on a basketball team and your like star player was missing their free throws, like what would you do and how would you talk with them to make sure they got everything they needed to be successful and bring your whole team to victory? So redefine that to think of yourself more as a coach compared to a boss that needs to get stuff done the way that you think bosses need to get stuff done.
Mm-hmm. Love that. I love it. And in terms of Museum Hack, like you said, we're growing so quickly. It sounds like you've got things on point where the actual culture is concerned, where your process is concerned, everything. What can we expect from the future from Museum Hack and from Tasia?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Also, so I'm really excited. We're going into our next 2019 and beyond planning. So this last year has been all about stability. So we've had so much growth, as you know. We want to make sure that we're going to stay strong and stable as a company for years and years to come. So we've been very successful this year in setting up a lot of the stones in place and like the strong foundation that will allow us to like exponentially grow next year. So we've done some soft launches in looking at Boston and Atlanta, and then we're looking to roll out to have some full launches in those cities, as well as we really want to push and have more museum consulting. So our audience development wing, we've been focusing a lot on our corporate team building, and we want to make sure that our museum consulting is just as strong. So looking at more opportunities to partner with museums and potentially even teach them how to build team building businesses within themselves so they can use it as an alternative revenue source. Like the funding is being cut so much for cultural institutions. So if we can help bring over the business side to those institutions that don't have those regular revenue flows outside of funding and say some smaller for admission, potentially team building could be an awesome industry for them to tap into. So those are some things that we're also very excited. We just launched our first book ever. So
have you? Okay.
Yes. So we're pushing more of our content. Our goal for next year, and we've been working on hard this year, is we want to be a household name. So just like Guinness Book of World Records, we want Museum Hack to be the go-to place to be hearing the wild stories about history, about art, and everything in between.
So what's your book called?
Okay, so it's The Guide to the Fiercest Females. So it's off of our Badass Bitches tour in all of our cities, except we weren't allowed to call it a Badass Bitches book. So Fierce Females.
I like it. When's that coming out? When's that due to be launched?
So it came out. So we already launched in October.
Okay.
So yeah, we have the Kindle edition as well as the hard copy. So check it out on Amazon. It's an awesome gift, especially for the holidays.
Right, sounds good. And when are you coming to the UK? When are you guys going to be in the UK?
Okay, so that has very much been on the radar of when we want to make that leap. So potentially there's a couple spots that we've picked out. It would just mean the whole next operations of expanding globally. I'm not sure when we want to take that leap. So this whole year has been found stability for operating in the US as well as consulting regularly all around the world. So to open up operations, that's probably going to be our next thing. But I won't give you any specific dates on it quite yet.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on you for that, an eye on Museum Hack for that, because it's just so refreshing to come across a company and a CEO who does things differently and who does things with an element of fun, whilst having obviously that great sort of way of trying to build not just the museums but the people within the business as well. I love it.
Yes.
I really love it. So we're going to be keeping an eye on Museum Hack. And I recommend as well that you have a look at Museum Hack. Go to museumhack.com. And even if Museum Hack are not hiring right now, I always recommend that you immerse yourself in what they're doing. If it's of an interest to you, immerse yourself in what they're doing, understand what they're doing. So by the time they come to hire, you'll know everything you need to know about them, and it'd be so much easier for you to apply to a role. And actually on that note, Tasia, do you accept people from the US as well as internationally as well?
So as long as you're authorized to work in the US, we do have some people that choose to live elsewhere. So one of our marketing associates right now is living in Bali. So she's just hanging out in Bali, authorized to work in the US. So we can accommodate making sure she can get paid all right. So right now, just limited to working and authorization in the US. But hey, you can live wherever you want.
Sounds good to me. Tasia, I just want to say massive thank you. It's been great. I've loved what you've had to say, about Museum Hack, about yourself and your own work and all that sort of thing. And I wish Museum Hack and yourself all the best for the future.
Thank you. This has been a blast. I appreciate it, Alex.
Excellent. Speak to you soon, Tasia.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.